with the past 2 weeks. Um, I'm very happy to be back here. So, but we do definitely need a refresh on. Oh, wait. I didn't screen share. Now I have to screen share. Forgot. I see I'm out of practice. Um, Okay, a quick reminder of where we are with Nachum. So, Nachum is a three-chapter book that is a pronouncement, as we saw, Masa on Nineveh, right? Nineveh being the capital of Assyria, of course, is the destination for Yonah in the book of Yonah. And so, we'll discuss the relationship between this book or the potential options for what the relationship is. But yeah, so it's imagine just someone opening like here's we're going to talk about Nineveh, right? This enemy city, and you like don't know exactly where it's going to go. But it's very quickly clearly becomes about God's being, Kanov and Okem, a passionate avenging God. Um, and you mean you could just see all the language, right? It's very violent language, very God is very scary language, right? God is dominant, and God is going to pour out fury, etc., etc. Why would anyone even try to go up against God? It won't work. And we concluded with God has said, no posterity will continue your name, and I'll do away with the carved and graven images in the temples of your gods, and I'll make your grave accord with your worthlessness. And we talked about how there are different interpretations of who that is. Is that talking to the Assyrian king, who there's historical records cared very much about progeny and perpetuating the name? Or is it talking to Menashe, a really bad Israelite king? And saying, you're not going to have any descendants either. So, regardless, it's a very strong, very violent book. And I can't remember, it's been so long, I can't remember if I mentioned this last time, that this is the book that some Christians used to argue against why Jews were this sort of like archaic, violent religion, right? And that the Old Testament was this bad text. Because look at Nahum with all of this violence and no forgiveness. So, it certainly deserves the attention that we're going to pay it. All right, so chapter 2. Hine al heharim raglei mevaser mashmia shalom chagi Yehuda chagaich shalmi nedaraich ki lo yosif od la'avor bach bli ya'al kulo nichrat. Behold on the hills the footsteps of a herald announcing great fortune. Celebrate your festivals, O Judah, fulfill your vows. Never again shall scoundrels invade you. They have totally vanished. Right? Kulo nichrat. I mean, does anyone have a different translation than vanished?
Then what?
Vanished for the
Well,
last word.
mine says cut off.
Yeah, that's the literal translation of nichrat.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
From
Mm-hmm.
karat.
Right,
Nihrat
exactly.
means
What's
Yeah.
what's the parallel? Is it in Isaiah or Jeremiah? Manavu al harim raglehem afaser. You know what I'm talking about? It's an opening for one of the other prophets where
Yeah,
they
that's
say,
a great,
lovely upon the hills are the feet of the messenger.
yeah. Right, same word,
That
mavaser.
I thought of, but that's much more poetic and much more positive.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Not gonna find that in Nahum. Yeah.
Just what
So
you were
then,
saying, how this is, a violent take on things without
right.
even Jeremiah, right? There was language of
a
comfort.
note from Ellen Epstein.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I think it's also, the English doesn't quite capture it, but ki lo yosif od la'avor bach, right? Because never again will these scoundrels invade you. It's directly tying your ability to be free in your land to the absence of enemies, right? Whereas, like you're saying, whether it's Isaiah, Jeremiah, it's more, it's less concrete. It's not connected to that. It's just like, oh, here, good will come. Yeah. Um, okay. Allah mefitz al panaich natsor metzura tzapeh derech chazek manayim ametz koach me'od. So a shatterer has come up against you. Um, what was this here? Or Nineveh. Okay, good. See, you here being Nineveh, they make a point that it's Nineveh because Pasuk Aleph is talking to Judah. Most people believe that now we're shifting and talking to Assyria, although the Abarbanel apparently believes it is still Judah. Yeah, so we're turning now, and Mayfit's a shatterer. I mean, it's scatter. Yes, here Beasley says is scatterer. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's Rashi says this is still the Jewish people, not Assyria. Okay, so scatter really is the more literal translation. Al Panaich is put up the guard posts, watch the road, steady your loins, brace all your strength. Um, Let me just quotes nafats. Okay. All right.
Excuse me?
Well, wait a
Yeah,
second.
Excuse me?
please.
I had always assumed that he was talking to the Jewish people and not the Assyrian king, because I don't understand why he would be prophesying to the Assyrian king. I'm trying to understand where the theory that it even might be talking to the Assyrian king comes from.
Like, how would the Assyrian king actually get the message?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I never even thought of that possibility when reading this.
So that's a great question. If it's Assyria, is it actually intended to be delivered to the Assyrians, or is it intended as like a comfort to the Jews, right? Which goes back to, of course, the fact that his name is Nachum, right? Comfort. Um, yeah, that's a great question. What is intended to be hypothetical or actually a concrete prophecy? I guess I always assumed hypothetical, but that may have just been an assumption. Yeah. Also, so what Beasley points out is into that the language is intentionally terse or curt, meaning Natsor Mitzurah, Safed Derech, right? Look, it's like short commandments that he argues are mimicking the way that like an army commander would speak to troops, right? So, yeah, it's not poetic, right? It's intentionally not poetic here.
Okay.
Okay. Ki shav Hashem et geon Yaakov, ki geon Yisrael, ki bekakum bokekim uzmorehem shichetu. For God has restored the pride of Jacob as well as the pride of Israel, though marauders have laid them waste and ravaged their branches. Yeah, so that's pretty similar. Also, what Beasley points out is that previously in prophetic literature, the phrase Geon Yaakov, the pride of Jacob, carried negative connotations and was used to refer to Israel negatively. Here, Nachum deliberately reverses the connotation of the phrase, using it in praise of Israel and warning the enemy about the upcoming assault in which Israel will be raised up and the enemy will be destroyed. So I thought that that was very interesting as well.
Yeshivas.
And then also is who's the object of or the sub of the marauders have laid them waste? Is that the Jews, right, who have been destroyed by the Assyrians? Is it the Assyrians are going to be destroyed by others? Also a debate. Okay, Magen Giburehu me'adam anshe chayil metulaim be'esh paladot harechev beyom hachino, excuse me, vehabroshim haralu. So his warriors' shields are painted red, and the soldiers are clothed in crimson. The chariots are like flaming torches. Let's There's as you can see here, a little bit of disagreement about how to split this up. Um, on the day they are made ready, the arrows of cypress wood are poisoned. Bechutzot yihololelu harechev yishtak shekun berchovot mariehen kelapidim kabrakim yorotzetsu. The chariots dash about frenzied in the fields. They rush through the meadows. They appear like torches. They race like streaks of lightning. So very clearly, the red images of fire. Yeah, it's supposed to sound very scary. According to Yechezkel, he points out that red was a favorite color of the Babylonian army, which if the Assyrians are afraid of the Babylonians, then of course, you would want to say that they're red. Um, yeah. There's two more verses like for this little section. Yiskor adira v'kashlu behalichatam yimaharu chomata v'uchan hasochech. He commands his burly men, they stumble as they advance, they hasten up to her wall where willed shelters are set up.
Is it
Uh,
talking about a specific event that happened or that was predicted? Because it's not clear
yeah,
who we are talking to and what is this all about? Is this before there's a fight or is it after?
yeah,
Because a tense is also seem to describe a situation. It's not a prediction. It's not like a
yeah.
prophecy of any kind.
So it's a very, very, very
So
good question. What? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So look, so there's a huge footnote here about opening with the sentence, there's much discussion in modern scholarship whether or not Nineveh was actually destroyed by a flood or due to the assault of the Babylonians and their allied forces. So let's just look at 7 to close that section. Sha'arei haneharot niftachu v'ha'heichal namug. The floodgates are opened and the palace is deluged. So it seems that according to the first century BCE Greek historian Diodorus, there was an oracle in the hands of the kings of Assyria that Nineveh would not fall unless the river first became an enemy to the city. And that basically records that it was flooded, but starting in the 19th century, archaeologists began to unearth the ruins of Nineveh, and they discovered that not only did no evidence exist for the flood account, but that it appeared that the city was actually burned. Right, in which case this would be prophesying that, yeah, the Babylonians are going to come and destroy it, right? So this would be a very accurate prediction. Whereas if it was destroyed by a flood, then this is more a fantasy of that destruction. Anyone have any footnotes about any of this or any comments?
why are we being, why is Judah being coupled up with Nineveh? I'm thinking of Nineveh from Jonah and God saving Nineveh.
Yeah,
There. So what's a fight here between Nineveh and Judah? I mean, are they
right.
there Syrian or
So it's super interesting, right? Because Nineveh is the capital of Assyria, right? So if you ever think about, I don't know, the city you would want to say represents your enemy more than anyone else. It's Nineveh. And yeah, I think the problem is our association with Nineveh, because we're much more familiar with Yonah, is that city that repented. And I didn't even really, appreciate the extent to which until I started looking at like Nachum, etc., the extent to which Nineveh was a name like hugely triggering terrible thing, right, for the Jews at this time. The center of your enemy, your vicious, barbaric, awful, cruel enemy, right? And so yeah, it kind of makes sense here that so much violence is directed towards Nineveh because how could you not wish violence upon Nineveh? It makes Yonah much stranger than it makes Nahum, if that makes, yeah, I guess is how I would say it.
okay?
So interestingly, in my translation, it
Hmm.
says the gates of the rivers have been opened and the palace is melting as opposed to
Yes.
flooding.
Yes, that is the literal translation of Namog, right? Yes, that's yeah, very interesting. Here he says dissolved, melting. Do you have a footnote or anything about what it means by melting, how they understood that?
Seven, no.
Okay.
Yeah, Namog is to melt.
Yes, yeah.
Actually, here it does say those of Nineveh's gates that open to the banks of the Tigris River. But still, they're not melting, they're being flooded.
Right.
I
Totally.
have a note about the melting that the palace was quivering and quaking from stone missiles that have been battered by its walls, and the
Oof.
king trembles.
Yikes. Ah, okay. Interesting. All right, so now we get to a difficult pasuk in this book because it says vehutzav gulta ho'alata ve'ahomot nope ve'amhoteha manhagot kekol yonim metofefot al livivehen. So Chutzav is exiled and carried away, while her handmaidens escort her, as with the voices of doves beating their breasts. So I'll just read what Beasley says here. He says verse 8 is one of the most difficult verses in the book, as it references a figure, Chutzav, lowercase h, whose identity is unknown. Both Rashi and Ibn Ezra understood it to mean the queen of Assyria, describing how she's publicly humiliated as she is carried away by the invaders. Others maintain that Chutzav refers to a statue of Ishtar, Nineveh's patron goddess. If Chutzar is indeed the statue of Nineveh's patron goddess, we can envision the following scenario. As their city is falling, Nineveh's desperate citizens resort to a measure taken only in extreme emergency, that of removing their idol from its dwelling in its temple and displaying it publicly, hoping that the city's defenders will see it and be strengthened. This drastic measure, however, is to no avail. The statue is taken and looted like the rest of Nineveh's treasure. A cacophony arises from the city, the bitter sounds of the temple priestesses beating their breasts in mourning, mixed with the voices of desperate officers calling upon their retreating soldiers to hold the line without success. So, yeah, that certainly helps me get a visual of this. Veninve kivrechat mai mimehi vehema nasim imdu amodu ve'en mafne. Nineveh has been like a placid pool of water from earliest times. Now they flee. Stop, stop, but none can turn them back. Right. And so that's what he just referenced a second ago, is that the soldiers are running away and the general's like, stop, don't go. Right. But just they're gone. Okay. Bozu kesef, bozu zahav, ve'en ketze letchuna, kavod mikol kli chemda. Plunder silver, plunder gold. There's no limit to the treasure. It is a hoard of all precious objects. I mean, that sounds pretty cool, I think. All right. Now we have a big, let's look at this next pasuk. Buka umvuka umevulaka velev names ufik birkaim v'chalchala b'chol ma'naim ufnei kulam kiptzu faror. Desolation, devastation, and destruction. Spirits sink, knees buckle, all loins tremble, all faces turn ashen. So what Beasley points out is that Nachum uses a brilliant three-part alliterative with a hapax legomenon, words found nowhere else in the Bible, to convey the sense of desolation. Buka umevulaka, emptiness, desolation, and devastation. There's also onomatopoeia here, as the Hebrew words, when vocalized, sound like the sound that water makes as it's slowly emptying from a container. Yeah. Okay.
This is the destruction of Nineveh, not at the hands of the Israelites, and it's destruction by another foreign power.
Yeah.
And begs the question, why is God helping another foreign power to destroy the enemy as opposed to helping the Israelites destroy?
That's a great question. Yeah, God never really seems interested in the Israelites becoming an army that ventures beyond the borders of the land of Israel, right? We're not conquering, we're not expansive. We're just trying to occupy the land that we have. And if destroying the enemy means going to where they are, that's just not what we do, I guess, is what I would say.
So if God is helping another foreign power destroy our enemy, it's not like we had any friends, the Israelites had any friends in that area, so it doesn't really solve a problem.
What do you mean? Spell that out?
Well, there's no indication that the foreign power destroying Nineveh is going to be a friend to the Israelites. It's not in anywhere even implied in this text. It's simply one foreign power replacing another at the Israelite border.
Well, historically, if it is Babylon, the Babylonian exile was actually a lot better under the Babylonians than under any other of the conquerors that could have been at that, better than the Assyrians, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And they and the Jews thrived in Babylon and were eventually, taken over by the Persians and then able to go back to their land. So, you can say that God foresaw that the Babylonian conquest of this other, enemy, and then eventually of Judea or Israel itself, that maybe it was the lesser of all the evils and would give the Jews an out.
Okay, I'll buy that.
Okay. Now we just have a couple more psukim left, four more. Oh no, three more. Okay. Aye me'on arayot umir'ehu lakfirim asher halach aryeh lavi sham gur aryeh ve'ein macharid. Just read these two together because they're both about lions. Aryeh toref b'dei gorotav umechanek lilvotav v'yimalei teref chorav ume'onotav trefa. All right. What has become of that lion's den, that pasture of great beasts, where lion and lion's breed walked, and lion's cub with none to disturb them? Where is the lion that tore victims for its cubs and strangled for the lionesses, and filled its lair with prey and its dens with mangled flesh? So, what are we talking about with the lions? Here we have Beasley again. Foreign visitors to the great city of Nineveh were greeted with large reliefs carved into walls that portrayed scenes of the Assyrian kings hunting lions as a way of demonstrating their ferocity and their bravery. Now Nachum takes that image and turns it against them, asking sarcastically, "Where's the lion's den?" Additionally, not only did the Assyrians depict their king and his warriors as brave fighters capable of hunting ferocious lions, they also depicted them as being mighty like lions themselves. Nahum subtly both combines the two metaphors and reverses them. If kings hunted lions and brought their hides as trophies to Nineveh, now lions run free throughout the city, carrying their prey back to their dens. The king, whose job it is to hunt, is nowhere in sight, while lions rampage through the city with no one to frighten them any longer. So that's all that lion imagery for you. I will say that I don't know enough about this very obscure topic, which is how much people in the Tanakh knew about animals, but female lions do the hunting, not men. So just saying, here it's the Aryeh is hunting.
And you were in Africa, so you know.
Exactly. That's what you learn on safari is that male lions are the most useless creatures. They literally sit and nap all day by themselves while the women hunt and take care of the kids. It's obscene. I was just like,
Is this a figure of speech? Because I don't think there are lions in Assyria or Babylonia.
yeah, it's a good question, right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's just a figure of speech. It's
Yeah,
because there is no lions. You know,
yeah.
in Masada there are goats, wild goats, but I don't think I've seen any lions or bears.
There used to be lions in that area. It's documented in other texts, in both the hieroglyphics and Josephus and several places. Judah was the lion. I mean, lions were well known there.
And what, they just receded to Africa at some point, to sub-Saharan Africa?
They basically died out in that area, apparently from climate change, as forests disappeared, taken over by desert, because originally it was a heavily forested area.
Oh, interesting. Do you know like what years we're talking?
Do I know? No.
Yes.
Is it known?
I
Yes.
mean, this is 2,000 years ago, right? Usually you think of that type of stuff as being a 20,000 year process, right? So that's what I'm just asking.
Well, apparently the desertization of that area, growing up from what's now Sinai, the desert was fairly rapid when the Jews turned to agriculture and cut down the forests.
Hmm. Very interesting. Huh. All right. Thank you. That's super interesting. All right, last pasuk. So our lions, yep, we made lots of fun of them. All right, Hineni elaich neum Hashem tzvakot v'hivarti ba'ashan richba ukfiraich tochal charev v'hichrati me'eretz tarpech v'lo yishama od kol malachecha. Malachecha. Okay, I'm going to deal with you, declares God of hosts. I will burn down her chariots in smoke, and the sword shall devour your great beasts. I will stamp out your killings from the earth, and the sound of your messengers shall be heard no more. Just see.
Is he still talking to Nineveh?
Yes. Yes. It's very interesting because Beasley says Jeremiah and Ezekiel will employ this formulation in their denunciation of the Jewish people a generation later. Speaking against Judah's capital, Jeremiah shouts, I'm against you, Jerusalem, you who live above this valley on the rocky plateau, declares the Lord, you who say, who can come out against us? Right? And Ezekiel says something similar. But yeah, and also that also says that until now, Nachum had merely alluded to God as the cause of Nineveh's downfall. But in the final verse, Nachum identifies God as directly responsible for the carnage and destruction of Nineveh. So now there's no doubt. Yeah. I mean, it's unusual to have this much space devoted to forecasting the downfall. I mean, we'll see plenty of times where that's, a couple verses long. But the whole book is very interesting in this much detail. And I think also enemy specific, right? The red of Babylon, the lions, right, connected to Assyria. I find it interesting just that it really seems to actually be like historically grounded in a real situation. Any other comments on this? Next time, God willing, next week, we see the third chapter, which is more, but also, of course, always a little bit different. And I love the ending of it. It's quite interesting. All right. Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go outside and see what it feels like out there. Just let's all pray that it melts.